Methodology of teaching natural science. Approach, methods and techniques of teaching science, Part 1. Welcome to a class on teaching methods in science. In this session, we will be dealing with the factors to be considered while selecting a teaching method in science. We will also be discussing two teaching methods, namely lecture method and lecture cum demonstration method. Methods of teaching science. A science teacher can use a variety of methods and techniques for daily teaching. While choosing a method, the teacher should assess its advantages and disadvantages in relation to others and also correlate the correct method with the objectives of education and the specific conditions in which learning is to take place. The word method means mode in Latin. The methods of teaching can hence be defined as the manner in which teacher impart knowledge and skills while teaching, and students acquire this knowledge and skill in the process of learning. Thus, method implies the teaching learning process involving both teaching and learning activity. Gage defines teaching methods as patterns of teacher behavior that are recurrent, applicable to various subject matters, characteristic of more than one teacher and relevant to learning. Which method would a science teacher use would depend on the students, the instructional material available, as well as the nature of the topic to be taught. Factors to be considered in the selection of methods. The criteria for selection of teaching methods are manifold. However, the most important factors are human factor, objectives of teaching, subject area, and time and material factor. The human factors influencing the selection of teaching methods are the teacher, the students, and the environment from which they come. The knowledge, teaching experience, and personality of the teacher are the factors of primary importance. The method of teaching adopted should also take into account the following factors: the intellectual level of students, the age and practical experience of the students, the social and cultural environment. In general, any participative method may be used in any environment provided that it is instilled gradually with prior knowledge of the environment and is accordingly modified. Lecture method. Meaning of lecture method. Carter Good's Dictionary defines lecture method as an instructional procedure by which the lecturer seeks to create interest, to influence, stimulate or mold opinion, to promote activity, to impart information, or to develop critical thinking, largely by the use of the verbal message with a minimum of class participation. Illustrations, maps, charts or other visual aids may be employed to supplement the oral technique. Lecture is an exposition of knowledge, facts, principles or other information which a teacher wishes to present to his pupils. While using this method, the teacher assumes that the students possess sufficient background and ability to understand the lecture. This is the oldest method of teaching. In this method, active part is played only by the teacher and students remain only passive recipient of the information. Thus, through this method, power of observation and reasoning is not stimulated among the students. Thus, it can be said that this is a purely teacher-oriented method and no importance and consideration is paid to the students in any way. Planning the lecture. Before starting to prepare a lecture, the teacher must be able to answer 4 basic questions. Who is your audience? What is the purpose of your lecture? How much time is available? What is the subject matter? The audience. What is the target audience, their background, likes and dislikes, cultural features, level of education, prior knowledge of the subject? It may be helpful to start with a general discussion or question-answer session. Purpose of the lecture. What does a lecturer expect from students after delivering the lecture? The approach varies depending on the objectives in mind. The objectives may be to give a general information on a subject, gain acceptance for a new point of view, change basic attitude, give detailed information, teach a particular skill. Time available. The lecture should be planned in such a manner that the interest of the students are sustained throughout, accordingly sprinkled with interesting examples, questions, discussion and so on. Subject matter. Lack of sufficient knowledge about the subject matter virtually leads to death of a lecture. The presentation of few ideas at a time will give the teacher an opportunity to evolve meaningful and logical relationship within the topic. The introduction should give a brief outline of the objective and theme of the lecture. In the body of the lecture, the important points are highlighted in logical succession. Illustrative examples are added related to students' experience whenever possible. In the conclusion, a brief recapitulation of the main points is essential. Characteristics of a good lecture. In general, the lecture is used for introduction of a new topic. It not only motivates the students but gives guidelines for the students on what is to follow. Summarizing a topic. It is effective in summarizing the lesson as the points highlighted would help focus the attention of the students. Supplementary information. This method is invaluable in supplementing textbook information as a follow-up or prior to laboratory work and in presenting the findings of field trips and project work. Posture. While addressing a group, it is preferable to stand so that audience can very well see and listen. It is also most convenient to stand and manipulate the visual aids to be used. Appearance. Clothes should be neat and suitable for the occasion. One should wear a confident and friendly look while lecturing. Voice and gestures. The tone of the voice can be accordingly altered to convey confidence, emotion, emphasis and indignation. Actions and gestures must be natural and spontaneous. Use of audiovisual aids and blackboard. A well-planned lecture divided into parts highlights focal points and improves the instructional value of a lecture. Time. Time available must be used effectively, keeping in mind the student's listening threshold. Pros of lecture as a teaching method. Lectures are a straightforward way to impart knowledge to students quickly. A large amount of material can be covered in short period of time. An effective means for introducing a unit, clarifying understandings and defining scientific terms. An efficient way to convey information to students who have difficulty reading textbooks and do not read assigned text materials. an inexpensive method of instruction. Instructors also have a greater control over what is being taught in the classroom because they are the sole source of information. Students who are auditory learners find that lectures appeal to their learning style. Logistically, a lecture is often easier to create than other methods of instruction. Lecture is a method familiar to most teachers because it was typically the way they were taught. Cons of lecture as a teaching method. Students strong in learning styles other than auditory learning will have a harder time being engaged by lectures. Students who are weak in note-taking skills will have trouble understanding what they should remember from lectures. Students can find lectures boring, causing them to lose interest. Students may not feel that they are able to ask questions as they arise during lectures. Teachers may not get a real feel for how much students have understood because there is not much opportunity for exchanges during lectures. To ensure a successful lecture, the teacher should use various techniques to make certain that there is a continuous interaction between the teacher and the student audience. The following 9 suggestions adapted from Clark should be helpful in maintaining student attention. Emphasize important ideas by changing the rate, volume and pitch of your voice. Emphasize important statements by using pauses that allow time for the audience to respond to questions. Avoid repetition of words. Maintain eye contact with the audience. Scan the audience to observe reactions. Interject humor and signs of curiosity and interest and other indications of your personality. Keep the flow of visual aids smooth and free from distraction. Lecture is a teaching method where an instructor is the central focus of information transfer. Typically, an instructor will stand before a class and present information for the students to learn. Sometimes they will write on a board or use an overhead projector to provide visuals for students. Students are expected to take notes while listening to the lecture. Usually, very little exchange occurs between the instructor and the students during a lecture. Lecture cum demonstration method. Lecture cum demonstration includes the merits of the lecture as well as demonstration method. It attempts to filter out the disadvantages of both. Demonstration means to show. In lecture method, teacher just tells, but in demonstration method, teacher shows and illustrates certain fundamental phenomena. Lecture cum demonstration is a very practical method in teaching learning process. The scientific facts and principles are practically demonstrated as well as explained to all the students of the class simultaneously by the teacher. Maxims of teaching, concrete to abstract, is followed here. That is, from known to unknown. Purpose of demonstrations. Demonstration methods may be used in science teaching in a number of ways. They are suitable for the following purposes. Demonstration purposes at the start of a lesson or unit. There are many science demonstrations which, when presented for the first time to a group of students, will stimulate their interest or curiosity. Showing method and technique. Students need to learn how to use and operate science equipment as well as procedures to take accurate readings. A teacher could demonstrate how to focus a microscope, how to take readings, etc. Applying a concept. The application of concepts in daily life can be well understood if demonstrated. Example: effect of water, air and sunlight on germination. The teacher should state exactly what it is that students should realize and demonstrate the application of the concept, principle or law. Solving problems. Demonstrations could help study and solve problems. Reviewing ideas. Demonstrations can be used as a review technique while culminating a unit. They can be used to reinforce important ideas that were dealt with in class and help to summarize key points. Criteria for a good demonstration. A successful demonstration will have the following characteristics. Visibility. The demonstration should be visible to all and the setup should be at a good height. The apparatus used for demonstration should be large in size. A blackboard behind the demonstration table will facilitate summarizing the related principles and key points. The lighting and ventilation should be adequate. Rehearsal is necessary prior to a demonstration so that the teacher becomes well versed in handling the apparatus. The pace of the demonstration should be accurate, neither too fast nor too slow. This helps students to follow the demonstration carefully. The teacher should make allowances for seasonal variations, power cuts, etc. while planning her experiments. For recording the data, students should be given sufficient time. The teacher should enliven her demonstration by asking suitable reflective type questions. Emphasis should be given to the major points in the demonstration so that students are aware of the objectives of the demonstration. Steps needed to conduct a lecture-cum-demonstration lesson. Planning and preparation. A great care should be taken by the teacher while planning and preparing his or her demonstration. They should keep the following points in mind while preparing the lesson. Subject matter, questions to be asked, apparatus required for the experiment. To achieve the above stated objective, the teacher should thoroughly go through the pages of the textbook relevant to the lesson. After this, the teacher should prepare their lesson plan in which they should essentially include the principles to be explained, a lot of experiments to be demonstrated, and type of questions to be asked from the students. These questions should be arranged in a systematic order to be followed in the class. Before actually demonstrating the experiment to the class, the experiment should be rehearsed under the condition prevailing in the classroom. In spite of this, something may go wrong at the actual lesson, so reserve apparatus is often useful. The apparatus has to be arranged in a systematic manner on the demonstration table. Thus, for the success of demonstration method, a teacher has to prepare himself or herself as thoroughly as possible. Introduction of the lesson. As in every subject, the lesson should start with proper motivation of the students. It is always considered more useful to introduce the lesson in a problematic way which would make the students realize the importance of the topic. The usual way through which the teacher can introduce the lesson is by telling some personal experience or incident of a simple and interesting experiment. A good experiment, carefully demonstrated, is likely to leave an everlasting impression on the mind of the young pupils. Presentation. The method of presenting the subject matter is very important. A good teacher should present his or her lesson in an interesting manner. To make the lesson interesting, the teacher should not be very rigid. Rather, he or she should make the lesson as much as broad-based as possible. For widening the lesson, the teacher may think of various useful applications. The teacher is also at the liberty to take examples and illustrations from allied branches of science. Constant questions and answer should form a part of every demonstration lesson. Questions and cross-questions are essential for properly illuminating the principles discussed. Questions should be arranged in such a way that their answers may form a complete teaching unit. Performance of experiment. A good observer has been described as a person who has learned the use of the senses of touch, sight and smell in an intelligent way. Through this method, we want children to observe what happens in an experiment and to state it carefully. We also want them to make generalization without violating scientific spirit. The following steps are generally accepted as valuable in conducting science experiment generally. Write the problem to be solved in simple words. Make a list of activities that has to be used to solve the problem. Gather material for conducting the experiment. Work out a format of steps in order of procedure so that everyone knows what is to be done. Teachers should try the experiment before conduction. Record the findings. Assist students to make generalization. Blackboard summary. A summary of important results and principles should be written on the blackboard. Blackboard should also be frequently used to draw sketches and diagrams. The entire procedure should be displayed to the students after the demonstration. Supervision. Students are asked to take the complete notes on the blackboard summary, including the sketches and diagrams drawn. Such a record will be quite helpful to the student while learning his lessons. Common errors in demonstration lesson. A summary of the common errors committed while delivering a demonstration are: apparatus may not be ready for use. There may not be an apparent relation between the demonstration experiment and the topic under discussion. Blackboard summary may not be up to the mark. Teacher may be in a hurry to arrive at a generalization without allowing students to arrive at a generalization from facts. Teacher may take to talking too much, which will mar the enthusiasm of the students. Teacher may not have allowed sufficient time for recording of data. Teacher may fail to ask the right type of questions. Merits of lecture-cum-demonstration method. It is an economical method. It is a psychological method and students take active interest in the teaching-learning process. It leads the students from abstract to concrete situations. It is a suitable method if the apparatus to be handled is costly and sensitive. Such apparatus is likely to be handled and damaged by the students. This method is safe if the experiment is dangerous. In comparison to heuristic project method, it is time saving. It can be successfully used for all types of students. It improves the observational and reasoning skills of the students. Disadvantages of lecture-cum-demonstration method. Ignores maxim of education. The maxim of education, learning by doing, and the principles of psychology of learning has no place in this method. It provides no scope for learning by doing for the students, as students are only observing the teacher's performance. Visibility. Visibility is the main problem because all the students may not be able to see the details and results of a demonstration. Speed of experiment. Either too fast or too slow speed of demonstration sometimes may create trouble. Since teacher performs the experiment at his or her own pace, many students may not be able to comprehend the concept being clarified. Ignores individual difference. This method totally ignores the main principle of psychology. Since this method is not child-centered, it makes no provision for individual differences. All types of students, including slow learners and genius, have to proceed at the same speed. Hinder progress. This method somehow hinders the development of laboratory skills among the students. It fails to impart training in scientific attitude. In this method, students many a times fail to observe many finer details of the apparatus used because they observe it from a distance. Lecture-cum-demonstration method is a suitable method to teach science in the high school classes. Scientific attitude is developed through this method as experiments are demonstrated rather than lecturing alone. Let me summarize. In this session, we have discussed about two teaching methods in science, namely lecture method and lecture-cum-demonstration method. We have seen the procedure, advantages and disadvantages of these two methods. Now here are some assignments for you to do. When can we use the lecture method in the classroom? Identify 4 limitations of the lecture method. List 4 precautions required for the conduct of a good demonstration. What are the steps involved in the conduct of lecture-cum-demonstration method? What are the advantages of lecture-cum-demonstration method over lecture method? Here are some books for further reference. Innovative Science Teaching by R. Mohan, 2007, published by Prentice Hall of India, New Delhi. Teaching of Science by S. K. Mangal, 1990, published by Arya Book Depot, New Delhi. Modern Science Teaching by R. C. Sharma, 2006, published by Dhanpat Rai Publishing Limited, New Delhi. Teaching of Science by A. Soni, 2008, published by Tandon Publication, Ludhiana. Educational Technology by P. Jain, 2007, published by Dominant Publishers and Distributors, New Delhi. Thank you for watching this program. See you again with a new topic next time. Bye.